Imagine a missile launched from Iran, and before any alarm can even go off in Israel, it has already arrived. No warning, no time to run, no time to hide. That is not science fiction. That is the Fattah. And today we are going to break down exactly why this weapon is changing everything we thought we knew about modern warfare in the Middle East. Welcome back to John A.G. Reports, where we dig deep into the stories that actually matter. If you are new here, hit that subscribe button right now and tap the bell, because we cover the things the mainstream media glosses over, and you do not want to miss a single one. And if you are a returning viewer, thank you for being here. Let us get into it. So let us start with the basics. What exactly is the Fattah? The name itself, Fattah, comes from an Arabic word meaning conqueror or opener, and Iran did not pick that name by accident. This is a hypersonic ballistic missile, and Iran unveiled it in late 2023 as the upgraded version of the original Fattah. But the second generation is a completely different beast. It is faster, smarter, and far more dangerous. Here is the number that stops everyone cold. The Fattah travels at speeds of up to Mach 15. Now let that sink in for a second. Mach 15 means 15 times the speed of sound. Sound itself travels at roughly 767 mph, so we're talking about a missile moving at over 11,000 mph. That is so fast that if you blinked, it would have already traveled several miles in that single blink. Now here is where it gets really serious, and this is what John A.G. Reports is all about. Putting real context on these numbers so you actually understand what they mean. The distance between Iran and Israel is roughly 1,000 miles, depending on the flight path. At Mach 15, the Fattah could cover that distance in approximately 4 minutes. 4 minutes. That is less time than it takes most people to make a cup of coffee. And here's the critical problem for Israel. Israel's early warning systems, even their most advanced radar networks, need a minimum of several minutes to detect an incoming threat, confirm it, process it, issue alerts, and give civilians any chance to reach shelter. 4 minutes is not enough. The math simply does not work. By the time the alarm sounds, the missile could already be hitting its target. This is what military experts are calling a genuine strategic problem with no easy answer right now. Let us talk about what makes hypersonic missiles so different from regular ballistic missiles, because this is a distinction that matters enormously. A traditional ballistic missile follows a predictable arc. It goes up, reaches the top of its trajectory, and comes back down. Once you track it, you can predict where it is going to land. That predictability is what allows systems like Israel's A-3 or America's Fattah to intercept them. You calculate the path, you fire your interceptor, and you hit it on the way down. Hypersonic missiles change the entire equation. They do not just go fast, they maneuver. The Fattah uses what Iran describes as a maneuvering re-entry vehicle, or MAR-RV. This means the warhead can change direction during flight. It can shift course at the last second. It can dodge. No defense system in the world today is reliably designed to intercept a target that is moving at Mach 15 and simultaneously changing direction. That combination of speed and agility is why militaries around the world are losing sleep over hypersonic technology. Iran's military leadership has been very public about what they believe this missile can do. Iranian officials have specifically stated that the Fattah is capable of penetrating all existing missile defense shields. Now, government claims always need to be taken with some skepticism. Every military in the world oversells its own capabilities, but the underlying physics here are not propaganda. The physics are real. Speed plus maneuverability genuinely does create a serious challenge for current interception systems. Let us step back and look at the broader picture, because this missile does not exist in a vacuum. You need to understand the regional context to understand why this matters so much right now. Iran and Israel have been in what most analysts call a shadow war for years. Proxy conflicts in Syria, Lebanon, Gaza, and Iraq, assassinations, cyber attacks, airstrikes. But in April of 2024, something historic happened that changed everything. For the first time in history, Iran launched a direct attack on Israeli territory. Not through a proxy group, not through Hezbollah or Hamas. Iran itself fired over 300 projectiles toward Israel, a combination of ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and drones. It was a massive coordinated strike. And while Israel and its allies managed to intercept the vast majority of those projectiles, the event fundamentally broke a decades-old barrier. Iran had crossed a line it had never crossed before, and the Fattah is what Iran has been developing to make sure the next time interception is not so easy. This is the context that makes John A.G. Reports different from your average news channel. We do not just report what happened. We explain why it happened and what it means for what comes next. Because what comes next is the part that actually affects all of us. Now, let us talk about Israel's defenses in more detail, because Israel has some of the most sophisticated missile defense architecture in the entire world. The Iron Dome is what most people know. It handles short-range rockets and artillery shells. But for longer-range ballistic missiles, Israel relies on the David's Sling system and the Arrow 2 and A3 systems. A3 in particular is designed for exospheric interception, meaning it is built to hit missiles while they are still in outer space before they re-enter the atmosphere. Here is the honest military assessment from multiple defense experts. A3 is a genuinely impressive system, and it has shown real capability against conventional ballistic missiles, but it was not designed with hypersonic maneuvering re-entry vehicles in mind. The speed and the unpredictable flight path of the Fattah represent a fundamentally different challenge. Israel's defense establishment knows this. The United States military knows this. That is why both countries have been accelerating research into next-generation interception technologies. The United States is developing its own hypersonic defense architecture under programs like the Glide Phase Interceptor, and Israel has been working closely with American defense contractors to upgrade its own systems. But here is the uncomfortable reality. These programs are still years away from operational deployment. The gap between the threat and the defense capability exists right now today. That gap is real, and it is something that military planners on both sides are fully aware of. Now, you might be wondering, if this missile is so powerful, why has Iran not used it yet? Why did the April 2024 strike use older, slower weapons instead of the Fattah? This is actually a fascinating question that goes into the heart of how Iran thinks strategically. The April strike, most analysts believe, was intended to be a demonstration and a warning shot, not a war starting full commitment. Iran wanted to show it could reach Israel without wanting to trigger a full-scale regional war that would likely draw in the United States. The Fattah, with its much higher destructive potential and its ability to penetrate defenses, is a different kind of weapon. Using it would signal a completely different level of intent. Think of it this way. Nations keep their most powerful weapons in reserve precisely because the moment you use them, you have changed the rules of the game permanently. The Fattah is Iran's trump card, and experienced military strategists do not play trump cards lightly. Let us also talk about the fuel system of the Fa-2, because this is another factor that makes it operationally significant. The missile uses solid fuel. This might sound like a technical detail, but it has massive strategic implications. Liquid-fueled missiles need to be fueled up before launch, a process that takes time and that surveillance satellites can potentially detect. A solid-fueled missile can be stored ready to launch at a moment's notice. There is no fueling delay, no extra window of warning for the other side. You decide to fire it, it goes. That operational readiness is a genuine advantage that adds to the overall threat profile. Iran has also been working on mobile launcher systems for these missiles. Mobile launchers can be moved constantly, making them extremely difficult to target and destroy in a preemptive strike. Israel and the United States have destroyed or disrupted Iranian military infrastructure in the past, but mobile hypersonic missile systems that can be hidden and moved present a much harder targeting problem. This is modern asymmetric deterrence at its most sophisticated. Here at John A.G. Reports, we also want to give you the geopolitical layer, because this is ultimately a story about power, deterrence, and the future of the Middle East. Iran's hypersonic program did not develop in isolation. It accelerated significantly as a response to maximum pressure campaigns, to the killing of General Qasem Soleimani in 2020, and to Iran's perception that its conventional military cannot match Israel and American power in a direct conventional conflict. So Iran has invested heavily in asymmetric capabilities, missiles, drones, proxy networks that can threaten adversaries without requiring a modern air force or navy. The F-A-2 is the crown jewel of that strategy right now. It gives Iran a weapon that even technologically superior adversaries struggle to defend against. It creates deterrence. It creates doubt. And in military strategy, doubt is power. If Israel cannot be sure it can stop the Fattah II, that uncertainty influences every military and political decision Israel makes regarding Iran. We also need to talk about what this means for American assets in the region. The United States has thousands of troops stationed across the Middle East, in Iraq, in Syria, in the Gulf states, American bases, aircraft carriers, command centers. The Fattah II is not just an Israel-targeted weapon. Its range and speed make American regional assets potential targets as well. The Pentagon has been clear-eyed about this threat, and it factors heavily into American strategic planning for the region. Some defense analysts have pointed out that the 4-minute flight time scenario between Iran and Israel represents one of the shortest warning windows of any missile system currently deployed by any nation against a major adversary. To put this in historical context, during the Cold War, the United States and Soviet Union had tens of minutes of warning time for intercontinental ballistic missiles. Doctrine, planning, and survival were all built around those minutes. 4 minutes is a completely different strategic reality. It essentially compresses any decision-making to near zero. Iran has officially described the Fattah II as a defensive weapon, a deterrent to prevent attacks on Iranian soil. And there is a genuine logic to that framing. Countries develop weapons to prevent wars as much as to fight them. But the line between deterrence and offensive threat depends entirely on the political situation. And that political situation in the Middle East right now is as volatile as it has been in decades. That is the uncomfortable truth. Let us also acknowledge what we do not fully know. Iran's official claims about the Fattah II's capabilities have not been independently verified. Military programs always involve some degree of exaggeration for propaganda and deterrence purposes. Some Western analysts believe the missile's actual top speed may be somewhat lower than Mach 15, or that its accuracy at those speeds may not be as precise as Iran claims. But even accounting for generous skepticism, the underlying capability, a fast maneuvering missile with a 4 to 6 minute flight time to Israel, is real. The debate is about degrees, not about whether the threat exists. What is clear is that the age of hypersonic weapons is here, and it is reshaping military balances around the world. Russia has the Call and the Avangard. China has the DF-17. The United States is racing to catch up with its own hypersonic programs. The Fattah II places Iran in a club of nations that possess or are rapidly developing these weapons. For a country under heavy international sanctions, developing an indigenous hypersonic missile program represents an extraordinary technological achievement, one that has fundamentally changed Iran's strategic position. So where does this leave us? What is the bottom line that John A.G. Reports wants you to take away from today's deep dive? The bottom line is this: the VA-2 represents a genuine, significant shift in the military balance of the Middle East. It is not just a weapon, it is a message. Iran is telling Israel, telling the United States, and telling the world that it has developed capabilities that cannot simply be shot down and dismissed. It is demanding to be taken seriously as a military power. Whether that leads to greater deterrence and ultimately more stability, or whether it escalates tensions toward a conflict that neither side actually wants, that is the question that will define the next chapter of this region's history. The 4-minute window is not just a number, it is a symbol of how fast the world is changing, how fast technology is outpacing our ability to respond to it politically, diplomatically, militarily, and that should concern all of us regardless of where we stand on the politics. Because when missile warning times collapse to 4 minutes, the margin for error, the margin for miscalculation, for misunderstanding, for an accidental escalation shrinks right along with it. This is exactly the kind of story that John Agg reports exists to tell. Not just the headlines, but the deeper reality underneath them. If this video gave you a new perspective, if it helped you understand something you did not fully understand before, then do us a favor, drop a comment below. Tell us what you think about the Fattah. Do you think Iran is bluffing? Do you think Israel can develop an answer to this threat? We genuinely want to hear your thoughts, and we read every single comment on this channel. And if you know someone, a friend, a family member, anyone who wants to understand what is actually happening in the Middle East beyond the surface level news coverage, share this video with them right now. One share from you puts this information in front of someone who needs it. That is how we grow this community together. Hit that like button, share this video, and we will see you in the next one right here on John A.G. Reports.